can just give a thumbs up reaction and we'll know. Okay, all right. So let's begin the session finally. Most of us have already joined and the rest of them are also joining. So as you know, today's session is on understanding brain, the affected areas and the impairments. And this is one of the most important topics that are asked in MPhil entrances, which are now MA Clinical Psychology entrances. So this is the agenda for today. And as you study this, you may come across a few words that you will be looking at them for the first time. Some words may be a little complex for you, but don't worry, this is exactly why we have organized this session. That's exactly why we are here, and that's exactly why we have made this PPT for you with a lot of mnemonics, with a lot of tables, with a lot of diagrams, so that it can be simplified for you, right? And by the end of the session, you will really understand what are the parts of the brain, and even the complex words, you will know what they mean, and you will take away a lot of strategies to remember, and you'll be able to solve the MCQs also. So that is what we hope to give and achieve out of today's session. Now, as we start, let's check your understanding a little bit. Let's understand how much you already know about the brain. So, can you all use the chat box and can you all write a few parts that come to your mind as you hear the word brain? Let's check our understanding. Most of you must be final year bachelor students, and I'm sure you must have studied biopsychology to some extent. So let's understand how much do you actually know, because on the basis of that, we will be building upon it. If you already have good information, then we will teach you accordingly. But if you need help with the basics, then we'll start from scratch. So please participate, please interact in the chat box and write any part of the brain that comes to your mind. I'm also trying to see some cerebellum, medulla, hippocampus, amygdala, hypothalamus, frontal, cerebrum, forebrain, midbrain, hindbrain. Okay. So we have Pragya ma'am here who will be taking today's session. I will introduce her when she is about to start with the lecture. But as I see the chat box, what I'm gathering is that you have basic knowledge about the basic parts of the brain. Now we'll dive a little deeper into it. Let me start with the introduction now. So I think we have already interacted quite a lot of times through our webinars and sessions before, but those of you who are coming here for the first time, my name is Vidhi and I'm the founder of The Young Psychologist. I'm a counseling psychologist and I've recently graduated from Christ Central Campus. I was also awarded a gold medal in my time at University of Delhi. Along with me, there is Manvi, and she is in her final year of Masters in Psychology from the University of Delhi. And we have been teaching and mentoring students since 2.5 years now. And we have launched quite a lot of Masters entrance preparation batches where we have taught a lot of students, 1,000+ students, and many of them have also secured admission into colleges like DU, Christ, TIS, Ambedkar University, and so on. This year, we are expanding to the MA Clinical Psychology entrance, for which we have Pragya ma'am with us. And Pragya ma'am has recently completed her MPhil in Clinical Psychology from NIMHANS, which is an institute of national importance. When she was giving her MPhil entrances, she had also secured a seat at CIP Ranchi, which is Central Institute of Psychiatry. It's a great institute. And she has also given other competitive exams like GMCH, IBHAS, RML, and so on. She has also been an assistant professor, so she is a great person who can teach you. She can really simplify concepts because she has a wealth of experience teaching. And as you study with Pragya ma'am, you can expect study material that's structured. You can also expect insider insights because she has given all these entrances, so she can tell you what is asked and what is not asked. She can really help you with the enhance also because she has studied there for 2 years. And she can also give you her own strategies that work for her. So over to you, Pragya ma'am. Can we start the session now?
Yeah. Hi. Hello, everyone. I'm Pragya. As it's already been I've already been introduced to you. So, shall we start? You guys can comment like yes or something. Okay. Thumbs up will work. Yeah, definitely. Okay, cool. So, right. So I'll be sharing my screen. Mhm. Okay. Just give me some time, huh? Mhm. Okay, just a second. I just need.
I can share the screen on your behalf and you can tell me to change the slides if you need help with that.
Okay, sure. Then that will also be fine. Yeah, sure.
Yes. So
Yeah.
the screen is already being presented. We can
Mhm.
move on to the next slide or we can continue from this slide itself, whatever is
Yeah.
comfortable to you.
Yeah. Okay. So, guys, the very first beginning is like whenever we are trying to understand brain, it becomes really very difficult. Okay, if I'll ask you कि घर में चीजें कहाँ रखी हुई हैं, how will you find out until unless they will not tell you, okay, at the right corner of the table and the left corner of the table. In the similar way, when we are talking about brain, in the same way, we also need to know like, okay, which part of the brain we are trying to focus on and we are actually talking about. So in order to understand that, because it is the like very initial part to understand the brain, so I'll be starting with the neuroanatomical directions of brain. Okay, so let's start. um you can change the slide. Yeah. Okay, so I hope this is clear to you guys. The slide is clear to you. Okay. So when we are talking about the brain, there are like three views which like through which we try to look at. One is the coronal view, another one is the horizontal view, and third one is the sagittal view. So in order to make you understand a little bit of that, I just had a like one soft toy. Okay, so what we will do is that we will just try to understand. I hope that this is visible to you. I'm expecting that. Okay, so in this, let's just suppose that this is a human brain, human head. I know this is a very cute toy. So whenever we are talking about the coronal, let's just suppose that coronal view is like whenever you are putting a hairband. How will somebody put a hairband? People will put a hairband like this, right? So it is more about through this area cutting the brain. So when we are cutting the brain from this area, from this side, then it will be what? Your coronal view. And as it is mentioned in the slide also, like a hairband from ear to ear. Okay. Then when we'll talk about the horizontal view, you know that horizontal line is like this. So in the similar way, if we will try to scratch a horizontal line on this person, on this thing, it will be what? Your horizontal view. Okay. And then sagittal view is like segment, like in the middle. Okay. Sides, both sides. So whenever I am saying that it is a sagittal view, it means like it is dividing it in two halves like this. Is it clear? Is it manageable to you? Are you able to understand? Okay. So if anybody has any query, you can type. Okay, fine. So it's not clear. Let's just take my head only. Whenever we are talking about coronal view, how do we wear hairband? We do wear hairband like this, okay? And let's just suppose that somebody has tried to cut the head through this hairband area. What will be the portion you will find? You will find the coronal view, which you can see here, this orange one. Okay, can you see this particular part? This particular picture, red one?
This one,
Yes. Then another one is horizontal. When I'm talking about horizontal, horizontal is this line. If somebody is trying to dissect the brain horizontally, then it will be like this horizontal line you are stretching. Then it will become what? Your horizontal view, which is this blue one. Okay, from upside you can see. Then there is sagittal view. Sagittal view is like you can see the partition, right? Just is like bisecting it from here, then it will become your sagittal view. Is it clear now? Okay, we will get more clarity about it. I know it is like currently it will be difficult for you, but let's just remember coronal is like crown, so it's a hairband, horizontal is a line, and then sagittal is a side. Okay, then let's move on to the next slide. So next slide is about like there are certain specific terms also, like you might have heard rostral, caudal, ventral part of the brain, superior part of the brain, inferior part of the brain. So these terms are actually very much important for us to remember. So in order to make you understand these terms, usually it's not like that these terms will come like this only, but yes, sometimes there'll be questions where they might have used these terms in order to make the question more what I can say, more difficult. So rostral is like towards the nose. Let's just suppose that this is the uh, person, and here will be the spinal cord of the person, and this is the brain area, right? And if it is the brain area, what will be, so what usually happen is the dorsal view starts from here, okay, on the upside. Okay, is it clear? Am I audible to you all? Okay, so when we are talking about the rostral view, rostral, what will you remember with roster? Raven. Let's just remember the raven. Okay, raven has a nose, like big nose. So let's just suppose that whenever we are talking about the rostral view, it's the nose area, like this, like this. So spinal cord is going from here, and then it bends in the brain, right? So if we are talking about the spinal cord, then rostral part will be this. And when we are talking about the brain area, then your rostral part become like this, which is near to your nose side. Okay, is it clear? I hope PPT is not clear. Is it so for every single one? Okay, fine. We will move ahead. Okay, then we will talk about the caudal view. When we have talked about rostral, then caudal view will be the opposite. Now let's just suppose that cow's tail. Remember the word cow's tail. So tail is like this side. So spinal cord also has, like when we are talking about the spine, below one tail area, tailbone area, that will be a caudal part. Okay? But when we are talking about a brain, just as rostral become this, then caudal will be the back side. Okay? This one will be the rostral, then this will be the caudal plane. Okay? Then we will talk about dorsal and ventral. Dorsal, again, there is one thing which I wanted to tell you is that in dorsal also, with spinal cord there'll be different directions, and with brain there'll be different directions. Why so? Because this is, let's just suppose that this is the spinal cord and this is like what your brain looks like. If you'll see that the extension is becoming like this and it is bending, right? If it is bending like this, then we can think that okay, whatever was here will be considered here, whatever was here will be considered here, and whatever was like in this place will be considered here, and this side will be considered here. So what you can do is that whenever you are trying to understand your brain, you can use this way to understand what brain looks like. Okay, what could be the part? Okay, let's just suppose that when I'm talking about dorsal, nose area, caudal backside, but when we'll talk about जब nose area को अगर हम पीछे से लेके जाएंगे, back अगर हम देखें, backward follow करें, तो हमारा spine का और spinal cord का rostral area क्या बन जाएगा, ये वाला, और ये हमारा क्या बन जाएगा, caudal area. ठीक है, टेल वाला एरिया, यही हमारा टेल वाला एरिया है. अब हम बात करेंगे डॉर्सल और वेंट्रल की. डॉर्सल लाइक दूर से, ठीक है, डॉर्सल का मतलब क्या है, दूर से, तो ये वाला एरिया. ठीक है, यहाँ है स्पाइन, स्पाइनर का. अब हम दूर से कैसे देखेंगे, मतलब दूर मतलब पीछे, बैक साइड. एंड वेंट्रल इज लाइक इनसाइड. Let's just remember, I'll try to make you understand one thing. Whenever if you are able to, okay, I'll try to teach you in English itself. So whenever we are trying to make you understand one particular terminology, if you'll remember one that particular terminology, you'll anyways be able to remember the another terminology. Fine. So as I talked to you about dorsal and then the ventral region. Okay. Then superior is like above something, right? And what we can say is that dorsal, we can say dorsal point also as superior and ventral point also as inferior. Okay, now anterior and posterior, now these are also the like different terminologies for rostral and caudal. When we are talking about rostral, rostral will become anterior, entrance wala area, entrance area. Then caudal will be your backside posterior area. Okay, then medial will be the towards the midline. If you can see the dorsal view one, there you will see the medial will be like this, like middle area. Lateral will be like spreading this particular area. I hope this is clear. Any doubt? Anything? Okay, you guys can ask me questions if anything you may not find. Okay, so now what we'll do is that we will move on to the next slide, shall we? Okay, so guys, there have been like what I can say is some people are saying English and some people are saying bilingual. What I'll try to do is that I'll try to explain in English, and simultaneously if there'll be certain terminologies which I may find that yes could be easier for you to understand in Hindi, I would try to do that as well. Okay, so that the goal will be done. I'm really sorry. Okay. So you might have heard of these terms, not telencephalon, diencephalon, mesencephalon, metencephalon, right? And okay, so when we are talking about a baby brain and evolution, we know that yes, the cerebral cortex is the like last evolved, like is the like majorly evolved area now. Okay, but when we are talking about the embryo, how this embryo actually develops, what you can see is that this embryo itself has like three partitions, which are the like primary regions where you might have heard of like hindbrain, midbrain, forebrain, right? These three divisions might be, you might have heard in 11th standard, 12th standard and other time also. So in the similar way, here also there are three parts, which is hindbrain, then midbrain, and then forebrain. But as the embryo also develops, okay, like let's just suppose a 5-week embryo, it divides into 5 parts. Okay, as it divides into 5 parts, it becomes like this part, like for example your hindbrain, which is also called as rhombencephalon. What can we say that? Rhombencephalon. Then a midbrain is called as mesencephalon. Okay, forebrain is called as prosencephalon. Okay, so prosen like pro, that will be your like forebrain. Meson like middle, midbrain. Rhombencephalon, like you'll have to remember this with hindbrain. Okay, now when we'll talk about these particular divisions, this rhombencephalon will divide into two parts. One is myelencephalon, then metencephalon. Just wait, I'll just tell you a trick, a mnemonic or a trick so that you can remember this. Okay? Then mesencephalon will stay mesencephalon only. It is not dividing into anything else. But your prosencephalon, the pro area, will again divide into two parts, which will be diencephalon and your telencephalon. Okay, so this particular part is what is the region for your 5 week embryo. Then it starts developing further. Okay, are you now? I'll just try to tell you a particular trick. Let's just suppose these terminologies telencephalon, diencephalon, mesencephalon, myelencephalon, metencephalon, myelencephalon, it's like cephalon what? So one thing I want to tell you, when we are talking about encephalon means brain. Okay, central nervous system. Now types of like structures of encephalon are these. Now let's just suppose if you have to remember telencephalon, tell. So what we can, let's just suppose you are trying to call a friend. You have to meet or talk to a friend. What will you try to do? You will try to call. Okay. So you'll make a telephonic call. But and in order to make the telephonic call, what you'll have to do? Dial the number. Right? Then after dialing the number, what will you do? Okay, dial the number, nobody picked up the call. What would you try to do? You will try to leave the message to the person, right? And if the person is not like hasn't responded to you and you are a bit like concerned, okay, what has happened? Then what will you do? You will plan to meet the person. Okay. And if meeting also happens, then what usually like part of you, like if your meeting is completely done, what will be there? You'll be left alone. That means myself. So let's just try to remember it. Telencephalon, telephone. Okay. Diencephalon, dialing the number. Mesencephalon, messaging, MES, right? Then metencephalon, meeting. Myencephalon, myself. Is it clear? We can make like telephone dialing, messaging, meeting, then myself. If it is clear, then we will move ahead. Okay. So now in order to understand this little bit more, what I'll try is that we will start with this particular MCQ. I hope this is clear to everyone. If it's not clear, you can just drop a text message, like not a text message, just drop a comment in the chat box so that I'll be able to understand and we will move ahead with MCQs.
You all can also type a yes if you are ready to start the MCQ, so we'll know that nothing is left confusing.
Yeah. So let's just start. Okay. So let's just start with the MCQ, which suggests that which secondary brain vesicle gives rise to medulla oblongata? Now you'll be like, ma'am, you haven't taught this thing. Then how can you even expect us to answer? Right? I completely understand that particular part. Okay, somebody has already replied, myelencephalon. Okay, nice. But but I just want to go ahead with, again, I want you to understand this particular part. Will it be possible? Can you just shift back to the slide? The previous slide? Okay. So if you can see that in this, what you'll see is that when we're talking about the myelencephalon has only medulla oblongata. Okay, medulla. Your myelencephalon is what? Rhombencephalon's part. Rhombencephalon is divided into two parts. Okay, your hindbrain is divided into two parts. One part is your medulla, like one part is your myelencephalon, another part is your metencephalon. When we are talking about the myelencephalon has medulla. Okay. When we are going above your brain, what happens? Just after medulla, what we know is that cerebellum and pons occurs, like are there. Okay. So pons and cerebellum are the part of your metencephalon. Then when we will move forward, there is this midbrain area, which is mesencephalon. It is that much only. Mesencephalon itself has different like areas, which we will like look forward. Right now, you just have to remember that, okay, mesencephalon, midbrain. Then when we are talking about prosencephalon, it is again divided diencephalon and telencephalon. When we are talking about the diencephalon has what parts? Thalamus, epithalamus, hypothalamus. Just remember thalamus, thalamus, hypothalamus, epithalamus. Then when we are talking about the telencephalon, which is like like telencephalon is like the higher order functioning. Then it will be our cerebrum, and also what will be there? There will be your basal ganglia. Okay, limbic system. So this is clear. Now again, we will switch back to the slide, MCQ slide. Is it not clear to everyone, or is there a technical glitch? So when we were talking about myelencephalon, as you guys already checked up, medulla oblongata, myelencephalon is there. Okay, the very initial part. Then it will be like medulla oblongata. If I would say that, okay, let's just suppose you tell me that which secondary brain vesicle gives rise to cerebellum. So what will be your answer? Gives rise to cerebellum. Out of these four only, you can answer. Please type that in the chat box. Okay, I really want to know like regarding this A. What is the confusion happening? May I know? Tementecephalon. Okay. Okay. What makes you guys think? Okay, I really want to understand from the people who have replied telencephalon. I said cerebellum. I hope that you guys have got confused between cerebellum or cerebrum. Is my voice clear to you all? Okay, let's move ahead with the next slide. Okay. Now let's talk about, again, the pons and cerebellum develops into which brain division? Please answer. A. Telencephalon, B. Metencephalon, C. Mesencephalon, and D. Myelencephalon. Okay, okay, okay. Great, great. Okay, so somebody who has replied C, I really want to know what was your rationale behind it. So I'll just let you know that it is the metencephalon. Mesencephalon is your midbrain area. Okay, middle part. Okay. Now let's move to next slide. I hope it is clear to everyone. Okay, great. So we will move ahead. Can we move ahead to the next slide, please? Is there a glitch from my side?
I have opened the slide on myelencephalon, so if you can see that.
Wait a second, I'm just trying to see. Yeah. I can see that. Yeah, thank you. Let me like just wait, huh? So when we are talking about milecephalon, it is like my part, cerebellum. When I'm like, what is actually very much important for you guys to stay alive? Not you guys, everyone. Not you only, me also. So what is your take about it, guys? Hmm?
Breathing.
Yeah, breathing. Next. Hmm? What else? Okay, autonomous working. Okay, autonomous working. Okay. Okay. Water. Okay, drinking. Nice. Mm-hmm. Breathing, food. Yeah. So basically, we will see that every single thing which is like essential for basic living, right, is the role of medulla oblongata. So breathing control, like regulating your respiration, then heartbeat regulation. It actually manages your heart rate, blood pressure, vasomotor center, like how much like the blood vessel diameter is also being controlled by medulla. Then reflex centers, like okay, if you have eaten something and just like vomiting and there is something which just got inside your mouth, people try to cough, and when there is an allergy, okay, people do have this reflex of sneezing. Okay, so all of these reflexes are also being the main function of medulla oblongata. Then cranial nerves, I have just put cranial nerves here, but I think like cranial nerves itself is to be like discussed in a very broad way. It itself can take the whole session. Then it is also a relay station, like because obviously we know that the spinal cord is here, brain is here, the main telencephalon pros part, telencephalon and diencephalon is here. Then what is it? Is a relay station between spinal cord and the upper major parts of the brain. And in order to remember this part, like okay, what all the functions of medulla oblongata are, so there is this one particular mnemonic which is like brave hugs. Okay, so brave hugs like B, breathing, R, reflexes like coughing, sneezing, swallowing, vomiting, A, autonomic control, as then we already mentioned. Then V stands for vasomotor tone, blood pressure, vessels, diameter, right? We talked about. Then electrical nerve relay, okay. Like nerve relay, relaying from like down part to the upper part. Then heartbeat, okay. U hugs में U will be upper spine communication. Spine से upper communication हो रहा है, ठीक है? Then glossopharyngeal, I will say that let's just not talk about it, but just remember that glossopharyngeal and hypoglossal are the like cranial nerves. And then S is for survival. If I will say, what we can do is that we can remember brave only. Okay, let's remember brave itself only. It will be covered. Heartbeat we already know. ठीक है, we have a brave heart. ठीक है, so we can keep it like brave heart. Is it cool? Understood? Mm-hmm. Okay. Let me know if there is any doubt or anything you have, any query. We will just move. Like I would really like to clear that. And till then, we can move on to the next slide. So we have talked about milecephalon, okay, and in the previous two MCQs, first one was your milecephalon. Milecephalon has medulla oblongata. Medulla oblongata also has like what main autonomic functions, okay, where we can talk about breathing, reflex sections, okay, autonomic function, right? See, autonomic control is not a reflex. Reflex is more about your motor reactions. Autonomic control is more about, I do understand that yes, reflexes are done by your spinal cord, but autonomic is more about heart is beating and your lungs are working in a certain way. That will be your autonomic one. Okay, when we are talking about the reflexes, reflexes are like major instant reaction which we have to do. Is it clear? Saharsa, Sahasra, is it clear? I'm really sorry if I may like pronounce your name. Okay, fine. So now we will talk about the metencephalon. When we are talking about the metencephalon, and we have talked about like metencephalon has pons and then cerebellum. As we have already talked about, brain is going like spine is there, then medulla is here, and after this medulla, then there'll be like pons part. Okay, let's just suppose this is the pons part. Hmm? So what is the work of the pons? First part of first function of pons is connecting the spinal cord to the cerebellum and to the cerebrum, which is the like higher part of the brains. It also helps in what? Sleep, arousal, facial expressions, eye movement, swallowing, cranial nerves. Again, so basically, I'll tell you a few things which will be easier for you to remember. So when you'll remember, like cranial nerves are like the nerves which extend from here. Okay, from here, this part, it extends. Okay, these nerves are called as cranial nerves, and they are spread onto like your face, your eyes, your ears, near ears, your brain, all of these things. Okay, your face. Okay, so mainly the myelencephalon, metencephalon, and mesencephalon, these areas are very much focused on the cranial nerves. Cranial nerves gets extended above also. But when we are talking about pons, pons is talking about sleep and arousal, sleep, then facial expression. So cranial nerves are there. It will also be like pons is attached to that. Then eye movement, swallowing, you are eating something. That is also been responsible for, like pons is responsible for that. Okay. And if there are some difficulties and some damage happens to pons, what will happen? As we already know that it is about sleep and arousal, if somebody's pawn is impacted, it may lead to insomnia or narcolepsy. Narcolepsy, you may know, insomnia is like all the time sleeping. Okay, so if there is some dysfunction in the pawns, right? And narcolepsy is like sudden outburst of sleep. Okay, the person all of a sudden gets into sleep. Then another part which I can talk to you about is Bell's palsy. You don't need to remember because, and locked-in syndrome also you don't need to remember because these questions haven't come yet. Okay, but I have just put what you'll have to remember is that if there is any dysfunction in the pons, it will lead to your REM sleep dysfunctions. Okay, is it clear? And we also have to like rush up because there are other things also. There is a lot. Please reply in the chat if the PPT is not clear. Okay, now we will talk about the cerebellum. When we are talking about the cerebellum, cerebellum is like maintaining balance. This is something which we always remember that okay, if we are talking about cerebellum, it is about I am able to balance or not, my posture is fine or not, am I able to coordinate or not, am I able to like uh, ride a bicycle or not, which is the part of your procedural memory. And also, see, cerebellum has actually a main role in classical conditioning. I want you to remember like usually three uh, points, which usually counts is like what is the main function of the cerebellum. One is the like they may ask you a question like balance and posture. Procedural memory also they usually ask, and classical conditioning. Which part of the brain is responsible for classical conditioning? Then the answer will be your cerebellum. Okay. So cerebellum is mainly, we can say, it has other parts also. It will be supporting because it has number of support systems. But what usually happens when cerebellum is impacted? Okay, so there we have a list of disorders which usually comes in exam. So for this slide, what I want you to remember is that metencephalon divided into two, pons and cerebellum. When we are talking about the pons, it is responsible for your arousal, facial expression, eye movement. When we are talking about the arousal, that means if there is a damage to pons, it will lead to what? Sleep disorders. Sleep dysfunction. I will not say sleep disorder, dysfunction will be the right word. Okay. When on the other hand, we will talk about cerebellum. Cerebellum is more about posture, balance, coordination. For cycling, what you need? You need to balance, no? Right? So that again cerebellum. Let's just suppose that if somebody is not able to, initially is not able to ride a cycle, let's just say that that person's cerebellum is not like completely functional right now. Don't make that a joke. Okay, is just a way for you to remember. And then classical conditioning. See cerebellum, see classical conditioning. Always remember, this is very much important. Okay, now we will move on to the next slide. Before that, you guys can give the thumbs up or like mention in the text like chat box whether it is clear or not, or anybody wants to know anything.
I think someone's hand was raised.
Yeah, please, if you have any query or anything, I would.
I had a doubt.
Yeah.
Um, Damage to pawns can also lead to coma, right?
Yes, it can lead to coma, definitely. So basically, that is the reason why when I'm talking about the dysfunction in the pons, it is also like arousal is the main part now. If arousal is the function of pons, then definitely if pons is impacted, arousal will be impacted and this will lead to the coma state. And thank you so much for like mentioning this thing. You guys can also mention this, that yes, pons also is related to, like pons damage also relates to coma. It can lead to coma state. Thank you. Anything else? Also guys, like it would really be a good thing that it is a like learning experience for all of us, and if you have like something to talk about and tell that okay, I have read this thing also and it was mentioned, can it be a part of this function or not, I would really love to know that, and I would really love to entertain that part, and we can add that also. It will be beneficial for every one of us. Okay, so let's just um which previous slide, Amanya? Okay. So which guys, which one slide you want? Which one not? Somebody is asking me to talk about other things. We will talk about the cerebellum effects, like whatever happens and damage. Okay. Let's move on to the next slide. Next slide. Hmm. Before that, I really wanted to answer you about this question, like how does the damage to the cerebellum may lead to autism and ADHD? So if you will notice that cerebellum is actually important for coordination and like what I can say. Okay, Vidhi, can you move on to the like back slide? I'm really sorry for that. Okay, where are you? Yeah. So when we are talking about, it is actually important for your coordination and timing, okay, and balance and posture. If you will see, if the cerebellum is impacted, you might have seen that individuals with autism, they actually get into some stereotypical behaviors. They actually get difficulties in movements, right? So that can also be the reason for that. And then when we are talking about ADHD as well, ADHD itself leads to what? Not able to have a balance and postures. They are so much in a hurry that they are not able to get attention to certain stimuli, and their procedural memory is not more functional during that time. Is it clear, or do I, you can tell me? Mm-hmm. Okay. So with autism and we can say that. We will talk about it. What happens? Aphasia doesn't happen because of cerebellum. It's dysarthria which happens because of cerebellum. It is more about the movement. If you are supposed to speak something, even then you need to regulate your movement, right? In the same way, there is a posture. For that also you need to regulate your movement. So if it that all of that is the part of the like responsible, like cerebellum is responsible for all of those functions, then if there will be damage to that, then it will lead to this arthria, slurred speech. It's not like that ki the person will not be able to speak or something, because aphasia doesn't talk about like non, like forgetting the way to speak. It is something else. Okay. No, language production or comprehension is not the part of it. That is a part of your Wernicke's and Broca's. Okay. Here it is about, are you able to speak properly or not? Are your like speech muscles coordinating with what you want to speak or not? So in the same way, when we are trying to understand, okay, what all the things can happen due to the damage to cerebellum, there is a like list. Okay. And we can remember this list as Danish. One is like dysdiadokinesia. It's like rapid alternating movements. Like your hands are flapping. You'd like, okay, so let's just suppose I will ask you to do this. Okay. You all can do that. But people who have difficulty and who have damage in cerebellum, they are not able to do these movements. And this will be like they are unable to do rapid alternating movements. This is like alternating movements, right? So this is called as individual who's not able to do it is like that disorder will be like this dysdiadokinesia. Okay. Then we will talk about ataxia. Ataxia like movements. Okay. Like when the person is actually having difficulty in coordinating with the movements, what happens is that their like walk will become very clumsy. So ataxia is the clumsy movements. Okay. Lack of coordination. Then nystagmus. Nystagmus is like your involuntary movements. Like let's just suppose I'm looking at you. Just look at my eyes. I may not be able to do that in the same way, but it's like your eyes are all the time in a rhythmic oscillation. It will not be stagnant. Right now, you guys are looking at the slide now. Your eyes will be very much centered on that. But individuals who have nystagmus, it will become difficult for them to actually focus. Then your intention tremor. Now, if I say that, okay, let's, what I can say, let's salute. Okay. So intention tremors are like when I'm saying that let's salute the individual who's asked to intentionally do a particular movement, they're not able to do. And there are like some tremors individual is experiencing. Okay, so these are intention tremors are like when you are trying to do an intentional movement, but it leads to what? it is actually leading to tremors. So individuals who have damage to cerebellum, they have intention tremors. Then as somebody asked aphasia, no, dysarthria, it will be slurred speech. Like you may know what can I, I'm just trying to make you understand. It's not like that I'm trying to make fun of anyone or anything or like that, but it will become very, very slurry. I'm lying to tell you that it is also like even this one is clear, but it becomes more slurred. Then hypotonia is like there is low muscle tone, like you'll be like your body, it seems like that your body is dancing, your body is flowing. Okay, and if we are trying to remember these like these all symptoms, there is a mnemonic which is Danish. Danish means D stands for dysdiadokinesia, A stands for ataxia, N stands for nystagmus, I intention tremor, slurred speech, and then hypotonia. Okay, is this clear? Anybody wants me to clear any particular topic and wants to understand some any subtopic or something like sub point, I guess. And also let me know if my speech, if I'm trying to like I'm speaking very fast, let me know. I'll try to like pace, specify it. Okay, if you will not be able to understand that, it will not make sense for me to actually say anything, huh? I want you to understand, so just let me know about that. Is it understood? You can mention in the chat box so that we can move ahead. If a person with both damage to cerebellum, one thing is the damage to cerebellum on autism ADHD, it's like both damage. How, like I'm not able to understand this particular question of yours, because you're mentioning that damage to cerebellum. So basically in neurodevelopment, children who have neurodevelopmental issues like ADHD or autism, there are chances that their cerebellum is impacted and affected, because even in fidgeting and all, there will be hypotonia also. Now can we move to the next slide? Or is it clear, Manya?
I was wondering if we could move to the MCQs considering the time that we have left for today.
Yeah. So guys, can we move ahead with the MCQs? Let's go ahead. So these are like some parts of the brains, right? All the parts, what all the functions they play, and if there is any deficit or any damage to particular part, then what will lead to. So now let's focus on this particular question. It is like something which I had already like just now explained. Which structure is primarily involved in procedural memory and classical conditioning? This is one of a PYQ question. Okay, I've seen this question many times. Okay. Good. Nice. Great. So cerebellum is the part. Okay, procedural memory and classical conditioning. Okay. Okay, now if I'll say that which of the following is not a typical sign of cerebral damage? Again, we had talked about Danish. So what Danish means? D for dysdiadokinesia, A for ataxia, So N for nystagmus, I for intention tremors, H for hypotonia. So what didn't come? Okay. D, spasticity. Nice. This is correct. So spasticity is not the part of cerebral damage. Okay. So this is something which I had to make you understand. I was about to teach you, but you guys might have heard of the substantia nigra, right? This is one of the question which is being asked. This I'll just give you a brief about it. Substantia nigra is a part of your midbrain. Okay, and as it is a part of the midbrain is also called as mesencephalon. And so if I may have to ask you, what is the role substantia nigra plays based on your information and knowledge which you have gathered apart from this particular session? Just answer. Okay, somebody said C. Anybody else? Okay, the reflex control substantia nigra. Okay, sensory relay. Okay, reflex control. Okay, B, C, C. Okay, everyone is like A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C. No, nobody wants to give D. Anybody who may wish to give D. Acha, tell me who, if it will be D, what would be the function? Which part of the brain would be responsible for it? Tell me, tell me. Tell me fast. Mm-hmm. Okay, okay. Great. So I'm happy that yes, you guys remember that. It's really good. So D, if sleep regulation is being a part, like pons is responsible for sleep regulation. But when we are talking about substantia nigra, we have to remember that people who were saying C were correct. Dopamine production and motor control. So I would just tell you that substantia nigra, you can just write it down somewhere, because I think like, yes, you need to be cleared about the whole concept, but I can tell you brief thing that substantia nigra is the part of the brain which is responsible for Parkinson's disease. And in Parkinson's disease, you might know that there are motor dyscontrol, motor dysfunctions, right? Because dopamine production is being impacted. What you can remember, substantia nigra leading to what? Because there is like dysfunction in the dopamine in the substantia nigra, which is responsible for motor control. If there is dysfunction in the dopamine, then it will lead to what? Parkinson's disease. As one of the major symptom of Parkinson's disease is what? Your motor dysfunctions. Okay? And I hope that we can like end it till here. Anybody who wants to ask any question, any query, because next other questions are related to, I guess we can check one time, like what is the other question. Yeah, this is again about the other parts. Anybody? Yeah, this is related to the okay, this one. Which brain stem structure plays a key role in REM sleep? Just now. Okay, it got repeated. Okay, played very well, guys. Yeah, nice. Okay, I have given this one we can do. That the previous one we can do. Yeah. Mm-mm. Yeah, this one. I have just answered this. Who has said C? I really want to know who has said C. Shivasankari? Why? Why? So yes, guys. Again, dopamine production is responsible. Which particular part of the brain is responsible? That is your substantia nigra. Substantia nigra is responsible for your Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease has the symptoms of like motor dyscontrol, which is due to substantia nigra itself. So B is the right answer. Okay. Okay, fine. Typo mistake. I consider that.
I think this was the last slide. This was the last question for today's class. So I understand that many of you may have questions about the topic that we have studied today, some doubts. So we'll also have a dedicated Q&A time after this. And if you have any questions about the RCI thing, the guidelines that are going on, you can ask that also in this session. So thank you so much, ma'am, for your time and for explaining this. I'll be taking through a little details about the course, and after that we can spend 10-15 minutes with the Q&A portion.
Sure, sure.
So yes. So, as many of you know, this was more like a demo session that we had for the MA Clinical Psychology entrance that we are beginning from 15th August. And what you saw is just the tip of the iceberg, I would say. What you saw is barely 1% of the complete syllabus. And if you saw our posters, there's like a lot of syllabus. This is the entire syllabus that ma'am has created. There are a lot of portions on genetics, biological basis, neuropsychology, a lot of in-depth psychodiagnostic, psychopathology, and the rest of the topics that also need to be done, right? And all of this is very different from what they teach in bachelor's. It's very different from what they teach in your college exams. And that is why we need to go a little beyond that so that we can actually prepare ourselves for the entrance. And as you've already seen the slides, you've seen the material, you may have also noticed a lot of new words, a lot of new things that you may not have seen otherwise in your textbooks or otherwise in your college curriculum. So you can go on and you can read the different kind of books. We can suggest them to you. But we also know that reading it by yourself can be a little overwhelming, and the syllabus can be so scattered across different multiple books out there. So, how we can help you is by giving a structure. We can give you our material. We have prepared these notes from the psychology reference books itself. So, having someone's guidance, having someone's mentorship, and having everything in one place gives you a lot of clarity, and it also gives you a clear structure and roadmap. So, we will be completing the entire syllabus in a span of 4-5 months so that we also have solid 2-3 months for revision later. So, we will help you with clarity on what is actually asked in exam, because it can be very difficult to filter out, should I do this topic, should I not do this topic, in how much depth should I do this topic. So as ma'am has given these entrances, she knows that what is highly repeated, what is of a greater weightage. So she will give you that kind of guidance for different exams, NIMHANS, IBHAS, CIP, and all the ones that she has given. Structured guidance, what to study, how to study, a lot of in session ongoing MCQ practice, just like how you did today right now, a lot of PYQs also, and simplified explanations. Like you must have seen the different mnemonics that were given, tricks to remember the telephone, dialing telencephalon, dialcephalon, all of that with smart ways so that you never forget them. um and of course mentorship from ma'am, because she's been through this entire journey. And again, MPhil seats are a little limited. We know that, and we don't want you to waste a lot of time figuring things out. If you want, of course, you can do that, but we are here to save you time, give you the structure and clarity. Right. So, these are the course details. It's an 8-month course. We'll have live classes for 6 months, and then the remaining 2 months would be for the revision. It's starting on 15th August and it'll go until 30th March. There will be thrice a week classes so that you are having consistency for 2 hours. Recordings would be given in case you're not able to attend a class. And these are the colleges that we'll be targeting: NIMHAN, CIP, IBHAS, RML, and so on. More colleges which later go on to add MA Clinical as a part of their curriculum. These are the subjects that we will cover, and a lot of MCQs in class, mock tests both for individual subjects and full length also, right? So we'll be doing all of this, and this syllabus is not available online. You will not find MPhil syllabus. We have created this ourselves, depending upon what is asked and depending upon ma'am's experience. So these are the offerings: live classes and recordings, syllabus as per the MA Clinical entrance, doubt sessions, ongoing MCQ practice in class, PPTs, notes, study materials, cheat sheets for the final revision days, mock tests for subjects, and the mixed tests on our entrance portal, which actually mirrors how the actual exam is like, with the timers, with the marking scheme and all of that. It's literally on a computer. Revision would be there and college specific guidance would be there. Now, all those who are interested, we will be sending the registration form in the group, so you can register from there. Are there any questions for the group in particular, for the course in particular, or can we take up any questions from today's class? If you have any question, you can raise your hand or you can type it in the chat box, whatever is convenient. Yes, someone's hand is raised. Shri, you can unmute yourself and ask.
So yeah, due to time constraint, we did not cover fully, right? So can we get the PPT?
I'll check with the team and I'll let you know. But I
Thank
hope you
you.
made notes from whatever was covered today.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. Will preparation for MPhil MA clinical course help in attempting CUET PG? No, I wouldn't say that, because you have just seen the level of MA clinical entrance. You've also seen the kind of topics that are asked in that. Now, how is MA clinical different from CUET PG? First of all, the syllabus is different. Now you may think that psychology to psychology hoti, what is so different? But then both the exams have different types of questions. It's like preparing for NIMHANS will be different from preparing for DU. Preparing for tests will be different from preparing for any other college, right? So the mock tests are also designed depending upon what each college asks. So NIMHANS mock test will not be the same for DU mock test. So that is why it is important to prepare for both of them accordingly. And I think you'll be putting yourself in a risk if you go with the assumption that if I prepare for this, then automatically preparation for the other one will also go on. Because CUET PG also has some subjects that MA Clinical doesn't cover. For example, master's entrances ask you IO psychology, right? But that's not there in MA Clinical. They also ask you um, different subjects, as in I've seen questions on health psychology, social psychology, but MA Clinical may not put that much emphasis on that. So you need to prepare differently for both of them. Recording of the meeting will be sent. IBHAS, CIP, RML, etc. सबका entrance exam syllabus will differ for MA Clinical Psych RCI. I think Pragya ma'am can answer this because she has given these entrances.
Yeah, so basically, if I will say, it was different, the syllabus was different for every single institute. It was not like that, yes, there is one syllabus and everything is like that. So, for example, if I'll talk about CIP focuses on psychiatry a lot. Then, if I'll talk about LGBRIMH, it talks about other aspects, and NIMHANS talks about more broader, like diverse aspects. So it becomes really different but difficult. But in this syllabus, what we have done is that we have inculcated all the topics which can come and which will cover up all the exams. I hope that is clear.
Yes, are there any more questions regarding today's session or about the course? Could you tell me about MA Criminal Psychology? So this session is particularly targeting clinical psychology, and I may not be able to guide you so much into criminal psychology, but I can just suggest you name of the college. You can check the website for more information. NFSU offers MA Criminal Psychology. Are there any more questions? So MA Clinical will be MCQ based. Pragya ma'am, can you take that?
So most probably yes, definitely it will be MCQ based because that is the major structured way to take your entrance. Considering it to be like subjective, I do not consider that they are gonna keep it subjective. It will definitely be most like probably it will be in MCQ basis.
Okay, let's spend the last 2-3 minutes in taking any more questions that you may have. Aptitude reasoning question will come or just psychology. So MA Clinical will focus on psychology based portion and not aptitude subjects. For the entrances, yes.
Yeah. So as you have mentioned that for statistics as well, yes, there will be MCQ questions for statistics.
Will MA counseling be different too from CUET PG prep? So there is no entrance exam known as MA counseling. If you are referring to pursuing masters in counseling psychology, then there are different colleges that offer masters in counseling psychology, like Christ, who takes their own entrance exam and interview. Christ has own entrance interview. Same Xavier's also has own entrance and interview for counseling. And some Purna Montfort also has its own entrance for the masters in counseling program. So you're talking about a different entrance. And if you are someone who's targeting masters in counseling psychology, then the correct course for you is our PG preparation course. I'm opting for BHU. So for BHU, you have to prepare for CUET PG because BHU accepts CUET PG score. So again, the correct course for you is our Masters in Psychology entrance preparation course. Are there any more questions? The colleges target over here, such as NIMHANS, did not get RC affiliation yet, with the exception of Christ. Would we be also helped in preparation for other universities such as Gurugram or Manavratna? Yes, so if you see the RCI list, you'll know that it started out with 10 colleges. Later, they added 14 more. So as of now, there are 24 colleges offering MA Clinical Psychology. And with every month, they are updating it. So more and more colleges will be targeted. So all the colleges that are a part of the list, we will prepare you for that. Because the syllabus that you see in this slide where we have mentioned this, you will see more or less the colleges are asking from this only. So whatever college you target, they will ask this only. Now it can be a possibility that one of the entrants puts more focus on one of the subjects, but overall, this is the broad syllabus that will be applicable to all MA clinical entrances.
I wanted to add one more thing regarding the NIMHANS thing that people don't get RCA affiliation and NIMHANS didn't have. But after doing your MPhil from NIMHANS, you can apply for RCA affiliation, RCA registration. And most of the syllabus of NIMHANS is actually taken by RCA for its syllabus.
No, actually, she meant that RCI has not, like NIMHANS has not introduced this course, semi-clinical psychology. But of course, if they were providing MPhil till this year, they will be introducing MA
They
clinical
are,
psychology.
they are going to, they are going to. That is clear. They are. They will do it.
Yes, and not just NIMHANS, but CIP, BAS, RML, all the places that have already been offering MPhil, they will introduce MA Clinical Psychology. Does MA Clinical have an interview? Yes, it does have an interview. They have introduced that. And will we get guidance for the same? We will most probably come up with another course just for interview preparation because entrance and interview are like two different, you know, aspects and both of them have different preparation strategies. So we'll come up with a separate course. We've been doing the same thing for masters also. If we choose child psychology, is it different from counseling psychology? So in India, masters in child psychology is not available as a program like masters in child psychology. You'll have to do masters in either counseling psychology and clinical psychology, and later do a specialization or a certification or a diploma in child psychology specific program like child guidance and counseling. Many of them are available. Any more questions before we close? For psycho-oncology, what should we opt? I didn't understand your question, like what should we opt? I think you're referring to the college, so I can suggest you Christ University Central Campus. They offer a course in psycho-oncology. You can check the syllabus on the website. Any questions related to what we discussed today, specifically about MA Clinical Psychology or our course or about the subject matter knowledge that we got today? Amisha, you can check our Instagram account. We have posted a list of colleges offering MA Clinical. There are all 24 colleges. Our Instagram handle is the Cyclopedia. And we'll be posting a lot more about it, so you can keep checking our posts or maybe you can follow so that you don't miss anything. Okay, I think we've taken most of the questions, so let's close here. So we'll send the recording of this session on the group, and someone was saying that their friend was also interested but couldn't join. So you can send this to them. They'll also get an idea about ma'am's teaching style. So let's wrap up here, and any more remaining questions can be addressed on the group. So thank you for joining everyone, and I hope you have a good Sunday. All the best.